Hello and welcome to day 12 of Adventures in Tarot Casting, a series where I show and tell a little bit about the boards that we create and the backdrops and kind of talk you through the reason why I perhaps drew this particular concept and also some of the ways that I use them. This particular board is called Medusa's Temple. I was really inspired to create it after reading a bunch of lore surrounding Medusa the Gorgon and the actual history of what happened to her and with her. And, you know, what we see in Hollywood is never really what is reflected in the history books, right? And growing up, we always knew Medusa, especially if you've seen Clash of the Titans, the older version. We used to watch that all the time. You would know that she was the villain, you know, and she was painted in such a horrible light, but before Medusa was the villain, she was actually a victim of the society around her. You know, she was so beautiful, and when she rejected the person who wanted her, they basically transformed her into a monster. And that is, you know, that is a very short version of her story. So this board was created to take a deeper dive into reflections and truths about what is being said, right? Like reality versus gossip, kind of. So it has a lot of placements, which is why it's called Medusa's Temple. I have this side in color, and then I have this side in black and gray. And this side is supposed to be kind of like what we're the living side, and this is the, you know, the side of what turns us to stone, you know, like when we succumb to the rumors, and this is the side of like when we know our truths and stand in our truths. So the centerpiece here with the snake, like the double snakes, it's loosely based on an Ouroboros, because we have the snake eating its tail and in, you know, perpetuum. And then of course in the center I have all the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, because I feel like it's kind of like setting a little space just to honor the elements, because like I've said, if you watch the first video, these boards are precast circles, altars, what have you, you know. So I like to pay homage to sometimes to the elements, which is why they exist in the center here. And so then we have a main card placement, and then we have 4 big card placements around here, and then we have a bunch of little tiles, and that's where the temple aspect comes in, because it builds upon it, right? So we're gonna do like a hypothetical situation. I'm gonna use the Pocket of Peers and the Out of Hand Tarot, because I like to show you how those 2 decks work together. And we're gonna just talk through a reading, right? So the center card is gonna be the heart of the matter. And generally with this, we would use tarot. But again, you can use these however you feel called. My placements are merely guidelines. Sometimes I get carried away and there's so many, you might want to just be like, okay, center card and 4 cards, you know, that's enough for me. I don't need to go into the tiles, but I like to inspire creative play. And so the way I look at this is, why not, right? Why not get into it with it? So, heart of the matter. Cut the deck. So the heart of the matter is the 6 of Pentacles. So right away, the 6 of Pentacles, if this is that, you know, the thing that is in our heart, it's giving what you expect back, right? Like treating others how you wish to be treated. Isn't that like the root of everything, right? Like we just want others to treat us how we wish to be treated, but then you need to take a look on how you're treating others, right? So what brings us to this thing of trying to tip the scales of balance back into that space of wanting to give and wanting to receive and wanting to just be in that space to be able to trust other people, right? And so the reason I'm using Pocket of Peers in these placements is because these are contributing forces, right? So these are the stories that have been told. These are what is real, what is imagined, what is being bounced off of this. So I'm using Pocket of Peers because I think it would be fun to have actual like the people bouncing off the center of why we need to seek this Six of Pentacles energy. And the center card too, I want to point out that even though there is a regular tarot card space, but because the snakes are there and in a circle, it's meant to also suggest that if you wish to use a oracle, you can use a round deck there as well. Like, I mean, you could use whatever decks you want, but that was why I made sure that there was a circle in there so that if I wanted to put nature portals in there, I could. So we're going to do the 4. So we're going to do, let's start here. We've got this 5 of Cups, 3 of Swords, Ace of Pentacles, and the Star. All right. So what is real? Remember how I said this side we have this, like, kind of like what is actually going on and what is being reflected is we have the Star and the Ace of Pentacles. It's like our intentions, right? I just feel like right away I see these two together and our intentions are, look, I want to give this to you because I am having a blessed life. And then what is being reflected back is people who we're seeing the grief and the pain and the sorrow. And this is why it's like, look, I want to show you there's a better way. You know, I want to show you that that you don't have to be in these spaces. You don't have to be sitting here focusing on what you don't have and then suffering through the losses. There is always going to be new opportunities, and the Star is just showing us that. And that's why, especially right now in the world, we see this space of like those who really have are not giving. They are, I mean, there are some that are giving, but it's, in my opinion, not the right ones who should be giving, because those of us who have less will always make sure that those who have less than us have equal amounts, right? I know that's a long walk to get to where I was going, but I see this in order, the heart of the matter is to bring everything back into balance, and we can't have overly like abundant stuff when there's so much suffering. We need to be able to figure out how to bring it all together, right? So this is where we bring in Lenormand. This is where there's some creative play. So the 3 here on each side. So these are going to they're going to build some pillars around the heart, like kind of showing you how to enter the hall of this temple, right? And with pillars, we start from the ground up. And so we have snake, heart, and sun. And then on this side, starting from the ground up, we have cross, child, and lily. So when we put these here, you can start to see how the reading is really building, and this is where we get into those layering processes, right? So what is building this pillar around the heart of the matter, around that, you know, charity, and just trying to bring things back into this space of like equaling, like less, you know, I always think about Six of Pentacles as like just give and receive and charity and all that, but it's like, just because more for me doesn't mean less in the world for you, like, and we need to change this mindset. So it's more for me means I have more to share, I have more to give, you know. And when we give of our resources, it's not always just money. It could be time, it could be, you know, how is it that we can contribute our gifts to society, right? And so that's kind of like what is in this bright focus, is knowing that we have the space to give these opportunities. And what we're seeing, what is being reflected to us, is just the sadness of the world. And that's why we want to do this. So the pillars around the heart, when we bring this in here, is because we see snake, heart, and sun. So if you're like, when you're reading in Lenormand, I'm going to give a tiny little lesson, and you're doing vertical lines, which is what these are, basically everything from the top weighs down on the bottom. So we've got sun, heart, and snake. And the heart reflects this heart of the matter and this vibrancy of wanting joy for everybody else. And what's just kind of holding it up, like this card at the bottom doesn't have a lot of weight. It's just what's holding it up is we're seeing the deceit in the world. We're seeing the betrayals. And that's why there's this desire to move, to act, right? Because what is good from the heart, also maybe you need to question your motives a little bit on it. Maybe you need to see, well, why are we doing it? Is there a deception afoot? And then going forward, we see like the lily, the child, and the cross. And the lily is something that in timing, it's something that's slow. It's going to take a while to do. But it's also speaking about, I generally associate it with elders. And then we've got elders and child. So we've got both of these things. And we see that there's a burden going on. And of course, that really reflects this side of the board, this side of the spread, which is why we're trying to bring it back into balance, you know. And then we're going to bring in, on each side of this, we're going to bring in a tarot. And these are going to be like little guideposts to advocate for the truth of what really needs to be seen, right? And so then we have the Magician. And the Ace of Cups. So put those there. And what that also does is that connects these to these, right? So in order, the guideposts, in order to be able to see through our intentions, and our best intentions sometimes are laced with undercurrents of, you know, like I said, a little bit of self-serving. The snake is that, you know, the deception. And so the Magician is also somebody who's a little bit crafty. So what is it that we are trying to create in this space, you know? And these, they don't have to be big readings here. They're just tiny little guideposts to be like, okay, look at the tools that are at your disposal when you are trying to share, like, oh, positivity. Like this could also be like, hey, everything's going to be rainbows and kittens because I'm going to show up and help people, and then they're going to see that and they're going to want to do it. It's not necessarily true. You know, when somebody's in a space like this, when somebody's feeling really down on themselves, or not even down on themselves, when society has proven that the world's kind of crappy, it's really hard to just snap them out of it just by helping a little bit. It takes time. It's going to be something that has to continue to happen. Like giving somebody hope that doesn't have it, especially when the world has shown them that it's not, you know, like when they're in this Five of Cups and this Three of Swords energy, they're still kind of feeling the burden of this, of just the weight of what's going on to our elders, the weight of what's going on to our children, just the weight of the world. And it's emotion. It's coming from inpouring of emotion, right? So the best guidepost is to be like, okay, it's going to take more than just thoughts and prayers. We need action, right? And the Magician is a card of action and skill and showing that we have the opportunity to see outside the box, you know. So it's how they play off each other. And this spread, if you haven't noticed, we keep bouncing back and forth. You know, it's almost like a bow tie, and this is the central focus. So then I'm going to bring Lenormand again, like see how I keep layering it, and they're going to go in these two spaces, and the Lenormand are going to be some action steps, right? And so we have Rider. I'll show you that one. Rider. And Garden. And then over here, our action steps would be Mice. And Fish. Okay. So again, we got these horizontal or vertical lines. Yeah, horizontal, no, vertical. So the action steps for this of thinking outside of the box, of being, you know, in this, okay, we have great ideas, but what are the action steps in order to put it into, to be beneficial, right? And so we have Garden and Rider, and it's talking about news within the community. What messages are you putting out there in the community? And in this spread, it could be the world at, you know, large. Or so you need to really look at the news that's arriving in the community. It's basically it. Before you take action, it's step back and look at what is being received, right? And then going forward, the action that we could see on this side is the fact that there's a lot of little problems with money. Money's not being allocated to the right places, right? Sure, there's abundance, but there's holes in it. You know, it makes me think like, okay, is your charity being more self-serving because you're only doing this as a tax write-off? Or, you know, and you see this in big corporations. You see this all the time in the world. It's like, oh, but I donated, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, just writing a check doesn't make it go away, right? So then the outcomes, which is going to be tarot in this little section here and here. We've got the Wheel of Fortune, and the Eight of Wands. And so we put these together and it kind of builds, it finishes the steps in this temple, right? I know that there's card placements here and here, but I'm not going to use those because I feel like right now they almost look like big arrows, don't they? Like if you pan back, you see that a little bit. So the outcome with this, and this reflects the path that you can take, because you know that there's always going to be a choice when presented with something in the middle. You can just sit here in your thoughts and prayers and your, you know, ideas of opportunity, but without actual change, it's just going to keep going, you know? So the Wheel of Fortune is saying, but now that you see it, the outcome is, it's gonna reroute the course of your life, you know? So in order, like maybe you started out with this idea of going and helping and just really getting involved with just small intentions, and it's going to turn into something so much bigger that you're never going to be able to go down that same path again. You know, the Wheel of Fortune, I drew it for out of hand to look like a detour sign, because it's like, you can't go on the path that you were continuing. It doesn't mean you can't get to the same destination. It's just meaning now that there's a blockade, you have to reroute, and it's giving you a little bit of a U-turn, you know, which isn't a bad thing. Sometimes you're going to stumble upon something pretty awesome on that journey that you wouldn't have seen had you continued down the path that you were going. And I feel like doing that charity and really putting yourself in this space of wanting to bring the scales into balance requires this kind of U-turn. And then going on this side, as we've seen, like this is the side of reflecting back to us on why we're doing this. Eight of Wands, it's showing that the change has the power to happen quickly, and it is inevitable. Whether it's going to be good or bad is, you know, remains to be seen. Could be good, could be bad. But it's still going to happen. So the outcome is showing that there's a lot incoming. It could be, you know, this is where you can start playing them off of each other a little bit. You could say, okay, well, we've got holes in the abundance, you know, all these little issues going on with the money and the funding, but it could be resolved really quickly as long as people are paying attention to it. So that's just giving you a way to work through this board. Like I said, I did it on a grand scale. So usually when I do that, the world issues come in. But say you heard some gossip. Say you heard some not so nice news that people were saying about you, and you wanted to really understand why it was bothering you. Like you could do this as a self-reflection spread and just be like, okay, the center card, this is why it's really bothering me, getting to the heart of your matter. This is what so-and-so said. This is what so-and-so said. This is what so-and-so, you know, like, and they're kind of bouncing off each other, and you're going, oh, but the heart of the matter is this is why it's bothering me. And so these building blocks, these steps help you really understand it and then get to a solution, right? So that was the inspiration for this board. Like I said, it's a tribute to the reflections on truth and how we allow our stories to shift, you know, because then when we get to the truth, it will set us free, right? So I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely am feeling that snake energy. I'm sure you're wondering why my hand is all shiny. I touched up my hand tattoo yesterday, so hopefully it won't fall out this time, but there's no guarantees. It's a hand tattoo, and that's a terrible idea. So anyway, have a wonderful rest of your day, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. how maybe you might use this board if you've been inspired to, or if there's another board that you would like to see me do. We're almost to the halfway mark of the month, so we still got, what, 17 more days. And I will see you tomorrow.